now hearing about a potential world record £4.5 billion takeover. Whatever the Lewis family is saying publicly, the club is for sale. I wouldn't rule out Real Madrid and Barcelona, by the way. Manchester United have always had an itch that needs to be scratched when it comes to Harry Kane. So Jim Ratcliffe, I think, will monitor this situation again with interest.
Hello, I'm Angelina Kelly, and today we are bringing you the latest news on Arsenal and their contract extension negotiations, a Spurs takeover bid, and which striker could be returning to the Premier League. And to give us the latest on all of this is talkSPORT's chief football correspondent, Alex Crook. So, Crookie, thank you very much for joining me. We've got some good news for Arsenal fans because William Saliba, he's agreed a new long-term contract at Arsenal, believed to be around 5 years. I wanted to ask, how close did he actually come to a Real Madrid move? And what does this mean for other Premier League centre-backs who maybe could be an option for them? I'm thinking, Ibrahima Konate, Mark Gay, etc.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it's a massive coup for Arsenal. I think we can all agree that partnership between William Saliba and Gabriel at the heart of the Gunners' defence has been central to any success they've had over the past 2 or 3 years. I know when Andrea Berta came into the football club as sporting director, replacing Edu, one of his big remits was to tie down not just William Saliba, but Bukayo Saka as well. We'll come on to him. So to get an agreement with Saliba, I think is a massive feather in Berta's cap as well. And he's very popular with Arsenal fans after what he did in the transfer window over the course of the summer. As you say, it's a new 5-year deal. His current deal was due to expire in 2027. It's an extension until 2030. A big pay rise as well. Figures in the region of £250,000 a week have been banded around. In terms of how close he came to Real Madrid, there was no formal approach, as I understand it, from the Spanish Giants, but he was one of a number of players on their list for next summer. You look at Konate, who you've mentioned, talks ongoing between him and Liverpool over a new contract, but there is a fear up on Merseyside that maybe he could be heading the same way as Trent Alexander-Arnold, leaving for the Bernabeu on a free transfer. And Gay is an interesting one because there were suggestions a week or so ago that his camp believed Real Madrid would be his preferred destination at the end of the season when his contract expires. That makes a lot of sense, of course, because they're such a huge club, but I think there'll be other big European teams. Bayern Munich is one that I've mentioned in my column on the talkSPORT website. I think Liverpool's interest is fascinating because we know they tried and failed to sign him on transfer deadline day, even underwent a medical. Then the message coming out of Anfield was they wouldn't revisit that interest in January, but obviously they've picked up an injury of their own since then. Diego Leone out with an ACL, so maybe they're a little bit lighter in that centre-back area than they were originally, and maybe that might prompt a change of heart and they could well come back in January.
Now, speaking about Arsenal, the next priority is believed to be Bukayo Saka, extending his contract. There haven't been whispers, I mean, you'll know more than me, but as far as I'm aware, there haven't been whispers of him wanting to leave the club. He's so iconic for them, but surely, maybe winning something big this season would be the perfect way to, maybe just convince him to commit if there were any doubts.
Absolutely. I mean, this is someone who's come through the famous Arsenal Academy, someone the fans absolutely adore. So do his two teammates, so does Mikel Arteta. And as you say, no suggestion that he's in any way unsettled, but obviously winning silverware always helps focus the mind and helps persuade a player that they're on the right path and at the right club. It would be interesting if one of those big European teams we've been talking about, a heavyweight like Real Madrid, Bayern Munich or Barcelona, came calling for Saka, if that would test his loyalty to Arsenal. Like Saliba, his contract I think is due to expire in 2027, so it's a fairly pressing matter. You don't want a player of that calibre to get into the last 18 months of their contract with no sign of a new deal. So I'd imagine that conversations will ramp up now that Saliba has pledged his future.
And switching to Arsenal's North London rivals, there is talk apparently about a takeover bid coming in for Tottenham Hotspur. What can you tell us about this so far?
Well, I think we're going to see a lot of these stories over the coming weeks and months because despite the fact that the Lewis family, when they removed Daniel Levy from his post, that was obviously a massive story when it broke at the time. 25 years pretty much at the helm for Daniel Levy. They denied that it was because they were trying to sell the football club. Sources close to Levy were telling me at the time that actually that was part of the rationale. They felt that all the time Levy was in situ, given the toxic relationship he has with a lot of the Tottenham fans, it might be harder to convince a buyer to come to the table. We're now hearing about a potential world record £4.5 billion takeover for Tottenham, headed by the tech entrepreneur Brooklyn Eric. What I can tell you is that when we reached out to Tottenham last night, they said that no formal bid had been tabled. I think because of the way Tottenham is run, they would have to make their interest public and declare it publicly before making an offer. But again, speaking to industry insiders, trying to get a steer on how genuine this takeover attempt was, the messages I were getting back last night was that, look, whatever the Lewis family is saying publicly, the club is for sale. They will eventually end up selling. Obviously, they're not going to come out and publicly declare that they're open to offers, because that reduces their asking price and puts them in a weaker bargaining position.
And sticking with Tottenham Hotspur, there are reports about their former player Harry Kane, because his Bayern Munich release clause is set to drop from £67 million to £56 million next year. Everyone is now talking about a Premier League return possibly being on the cards. He's contracted until 2027, 32 years of age. So first up, could a Premier League return happen? And if so, which club?
Well, I think it depends what Harry Kane is more driven for. Winning trophies, which he's pretty much guaranteed to do year on year at Bayern Munich, or breaking Alan Shearer's Premier League goal-scoring record. Obviously, now that he's gone to Germany and he's won the Bundesliga, he's got that monkey off his back. He can't be deemed a serial loser anymore because he's now got a meaningful trophy to put in his cabinet. I think he's always had it in the back of his mind that he would like to be the record Premier League goal scorer. It might depend on if Tottenham qualify for the Champions League this season. If they do, then I think that would be a more realistic possibility of making a fairy tale return to his former club. I'm sure that Thomas Frank would be more than open to that, and actually I've touched on it on talkSPORT in the last couple of weeks that the number 9 is becoming an issue for Spurs because Dominic Solanke can't seem to stay fit. I'm not convinced that Richarlison is the top player that Tottenham need to get them back into the Champions League and challenging for silverware. So it's certainly one to watch with interest. And I thought it was fascinating, the comments from the Bayern Munich sporting director, Max Erbel. He told a German newspaper this week that Kane is, quote, old enough to make his own decisions with or without a clause. And that just told me that maybe he's getting a bit frustrated about all the speculation over the England international. He is contracted at Bayern until 2027, but it does feel like if he is going to come back, then maybe next summer after leading England at the World Cup would be the perfect time, because he's going to need a couple of years at least, isn't he, to get his hands on that Alan Shearer goal-scoring record. I wouldn't rule out Real Madrid and Barcelona, by the way, with such a low release clause, and that may well be something that would appeal to Harry Kane to go and play for one of the big Spanish clubs.
I mean, there was a lot of talk about this Bayern Munich move. I know that Michael Owen in particular, he was really, really critical and said that he should be focusing on this Alan Shearer record. I mean, he's on 213, Shearer's record 260. Maybe there's a chance that he could do it. I mean, he's 2 away from a century of Bayern goals, so, you know, he is still scoring. But yeah, it feels like there is a chance that he could still do it. It's not completely impossible. But again, like you say, you know, making the move to Real Madrid or a Barcelona, I guess it does depend what he's interested in, like you say. And I think that a move to one of those Spanish giants, you know, would again maybe solidify Harry Kane as being one of these fantastic players if he could win more silverware, surely.
Absolutely, and I kind of feel like we underappreciate Harry Kane in this country. When you look at his record for England, you look at the fact how close he is to Alan Shearer, and I think if he did have 2 or 3 more seasons in the Premier League, he would certainly go past Alan Shearer. The fact that a club of the size and stature of Bayern Munich, and make no mistake about it, they're as big in Germany as, say, Manchester United and Liverpool are in England, have come calling for Kane, and he's so quickly got to that century of goals, I think is absolutely incredible. He might be one of those players, Harry Kane, that English football fans only really fully appreciate once he's gone, once he's retired, with those records in the bank that are going to take some beating. Certainly his goal scoring record for England will anyway. But just in terms of a Premier League return, obviously there's going to be a lot of focus on Spurs because he's got such an emotional attachment to that football club. Manchester United have always had an itch that needs to be scratched when it comes to Harry Kane. They would have taken him when he went to Bayern Munich, but I think Daniel Levy drove the price so high for Premier League clubs that it didn't make financial sense at the time. So Jim Ratcliffe, I think, will monitor this situation again with interest. I know they've gone down a different path with Rasmus Højlund and now Benjamin Šeško, younger players that maybe have future sell-on potential. But if a player like Harry Kane becomes available in the £50 million region and you get the nod that he wants to come back to England, I would expect Manchester United to be part of that conversation as well.
I mean, as a Man United fan, I would not turn my nose up at that move. Crookie, thank you so much for joining me. Let us know in the comments what you think. Could Kane make the move to Man United? And don't forget, this video is in association with our own bookie, talkSPORT Bet. Download the app or head to talksportbet.com if you want to get involved. 18 plus, T's and C's apply. BeGambleAware.org.